one thing I think people really make the mistake these days is that the pursuit of finding your person hasn't really changed. Finding the one, as they say. And even though we'll say, like, I want to find my person, or I want to find the one, we're out there dating like we're trying to marry 13 different people. You know, like we're trying to impress all these different people, and we want to get everyone to like us. And I'm just like, why are you spending so much energy trying to get so many people like you when you're trying to find one? I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But we do that, right? And then, you know, we'll get broken up with, and then we forget how much they annoyed us. But like, well, we can't have someone break up with us. We can't have someone not like us. So we'll spend all this energy getting validation from someone that we used to complain about all the time, as opposed to moving on and finding someone more appropriate for us. But you know, that's when our ego comes into play, and again, we lose our focus, we lose our intention. Our intention is finding one, right? And it's not to be liked, it's not to be popular, it's not to find many. And I think if we get back to that, or what our goals are of dating, we'll be a little bit more successful.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Better Together with Maria Menounos. And as you can see or hear, I am not Maria Menounos. Mr. Maria Menounos is in the house. Kevin Undergaro. Doing my best to hold the fort down as the backup QB.
You're doing great, Kev.
Oh, thank you, Kelsey Meyer. In a relationship, don't try to be perfect. Just be honest.
I love it.
That is a great quote, and I feel like I should surprise everyone with who this is. If you're a fan of The Bachelor.
That's right.
Kelsey, actually, you know what, Kelsey?
What?
I'm going to have you read this.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready. Let's pull this music down. All right, you guys. We are so excited to have Bachelor royalty, entrepreneur, host of one of the top 100 podcasts in the world, Nick Viall, here to guest host with us. Nick is going to talk about being honest with our intentions while dating, and going to talk to us about being, I just said that, and while willing to ask questions even if you're afraid of the answers. I'm so excited. We never talk about dating. Dating right now is a nightmare.
Yes.
Nick, help us, SOS.
And by the way, let me also say this. Nick is going to be hosting tonight. So,
Right.
I forgot to say that. So, Nick is actually, he's going to be guest
He's Maria.
He's the guest QB
Yeah.
today. Nick, you're going to take over because I have this theory that everyone's been pent up and separated. And I feel like, and it's, we're months away, but I feel like there's a little light out there. It might be a new normal, but I actually think people are going to rage and partying, rage and going to bars.
We're going
spending money, which actually gives me hope for the economy. But I think dating is going to be bananas. So, Nick, take it away.
I agree. A small fact, I don't know if people realize that the Roaring '20s followed the Spanish flu.
Oh, I did not.
Okay, I'm a history major, but I'll let you explain to the fans the Roaring '20s, 1920s.
Well, the Roaring '20s is kind of how it sounded. Everyone wanted to party, and it was kind of everyone was getting out and socializing like never before. And your speakeasies, it was kind of during Prohibition, around that. But people, that's where you have organized crime and kind of the that coming up. But essentially, the pandemic, when we all talked about this pandemic 100 years ago, they had the Spanish flu, and that crippled the world in terms of, obviously deaths, and people were quarantining and social distance. And that when that came out, people had this pent up kind of, rage, excitement. And I agree with you, Kevin. I think, man, I never would have thought I would have said this 2 years ago, but I think the world needs Coachella.
We're stagecoach.
All of them. But I'm starting to even think, I know Boston people, how we're very intense people. And it was always a place where, for guys anyway, if you didn't meet a girl by 3 a.m, you were looking for a fist fight. That was how it was back in the day here. And if you see some of our parades, you see it. And I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in the bars. I have a cousin who's just like, I'm going to make out. She's a female, and she's like, I'm going to make out with every guy I see. That's what I'm going to do.
Well, listen, the human, we need stimulation as humans. It's like there's been studies on it. Our brains prefer pain to boredom, because essentially all pain is is stimulation. So there's a study out there, you can Google or YouTube it, but they had these subjects and they asked them to press a button, and this button would shock them. And not to the point where it would like really hurt them, but they felt actual pain. It was like, "Ow, that really hurt." And then they would ask them a question. "So would you ever push that button again?" They're like, "No, it sucked." It was like a bee sting, so to speak, right? They would immediately then put them into a room that's, say 6 feet by 6 feet, that had a chair, a table, and a button, right? Same button. And they said, "We're going to leave this room for 30 minutes. And you can push this button if you want to. You don't have to push a button. You do whatever you want. We'll be back in 30 minutes. And most people push the button in less than 2 minutes. And this is something that they already, like, they knew it was going to shock them. And they asked the question, "Well, why did you do that?" They're like, "I don't know. I was just bored. I need something to do." And so, like, you look at all the things that we do in life and dating, and with everything, people have a way of things getting out of control or getting sucked up into the drama of it all. And that can happen with sports. Like, it could happen with anything. There's a certain level of drama that's appropriate, and then sometimes we just go above and beyond because we need that stimulation. And the world is a different place for the past year, and going to bars, going to concerts, or just, game night with friends, like different interactions, the little bit of drama that we require as humans to have to keep us level, we've been missing. And we're finding, and we're always going to find different ways to get that level of drama. And if we're limited with our choices, sometimes those choices end up being a little bit more toxic.
So then maybe it's about finding constructive hobbies, so you're not bored. Like I know, stay busy with constructive things.
Yeah,
but it's tough. I mean, I kind of joke, my girlfriend now, Natalie, she's probably the first girl I've ever dated where I realized, and maybe it's in my maturity, where I recognize that, like, I'm more dramatic than she is. And that's a new thing for me. And I don't even think I'm that dramatic, but she's a very chill, level-headed person. And it's that self-awareness to realize, because like, no one likes to admit they're dramatic. There's certain, like, characteristics we have. Like, I thought about this. Like, I got in this one fight with a friend because, like, loyalty matters to me. Like, it's a characteristic I really matters to me. But sometimes loyalty can get you in trouble. Like, when we're younger, like, sometimes we'll be so loyal to a fault to our friends that you'll have your friends back, and all of a sudden you're like, your friend's like, "Yeah, I did that. Like, I was wrong." And you're like, "Oh, shoot, I shouldn't, like, have had your back." Right?
Yeah.
But we all love to say that we're loyal. Like, everyone wants to, like, no one says I'm not loyal. Just like no one wants to think that they're, like, everyone likes to say they're organized.
Yeah, everyone's the hero in their own journey. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In their own story, everyone's the hero. Even the worst villains you see, I always remind people, like, no, in he or she's brain, they're the hero.
The hero, yeah.
In their mind.
Yeah, and so there's certain things that we like to say that we are that we're not, and there are certain qualities, like, no one, and that's the same thing with dramatic. No one wants to think of themselves as dramatic. It's like, "Oh, you're a dramatic person," but we all, to some level, we all desire a little bit of drama.
Because I am too. I'm the drama queen in our relationship, and sometimes Maria just goes, "Kevin, really? Like, just please." I see, Kelsey, you do it with me sometimes too, where it's like, come on, calm down.
I wouldn't really say you're a drama queen.
Well, here's the term, drama, because unfortunately I think we feminize that term, but really, it's being dramatic. You know what I mean? It's just that it's not manifesting in the same way. But I know I'm like that. I know a lot of guys who are a bit much, a little extra, and typically they're with the partner who goes, "Okay, you're done now?"
Yeah, chill out.
Yeah, listen, if you know that tomorrow you're gonna wake up and be like, "I don't really care," like, you're a bit of a drama queen, like. Well,
there's that self-awareness. That's so key.
Yeah.
No, really, because that's what I find that it's a struggle. People are so self-immersed, they don't have the ability to be self-aware, or the courage to kind of look in the mirror and go, "Oh boy, I got some."
Those are the dangerous people. You combine righteousness and a lack of self-awareness, and you get a real dangerous person.
Oof, that just frightened me. That whole,
yeah. Nick, what did it take for you to, like, be like, "Oh, I am the dramatic one"? Like, how did you become self-aware?
Well, life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's something in my personality that always desired to. I would rather figure out that I have flaws,
Mm.
and then rather recognize that and learn how to tell a self-deprecating joke than be laughed at. I think my ego and my ego decided that was a safer option.
Yeah, get ahead of
Uh,
it.
Mm.
Yeah.
that and
Smart.
then recognize it on my own rather than being the butt of a joke. I never wanted to be, I didn't, like I didn't want to walk in a room and everyone knew something about me that I just couldn't see it. I was
Yeah.
so oblivious to it.
Mm-hmm.
And because I see that with a lot of people. People walk around this world all the time. Like everyone sees it on this person. And they're either too afraid to look in the mirror or not. And I just didn't want to be that person. And yeah, thankfully, maybe it's because I had parents that, well, I got a lot of love, and I joke with my siblings like that I'm my mom's favorite, but my parents were always the first ones to let me know that I was, being a jerk or being inappropriate.
And Nick,
Or,
for the few that don't know this, you're one of 11 siblings, correct?
yeah, I'm on a level 11.
And where do you
So
fit? Middle, top, youngest, oldest?
I'm the second oldest. I'm the oldest boy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
11.
Incredible parents to give you that, do you think it was maybe having so many siblings that kept
I
you
think
humble?
part of that too is like, as much as I joke, no one was really, I mean, we were all very much loved, and my parents didn't have time to not just let us know what's up, right? We knew both love and affection, and we also understood disappointment. And I think a healthy combination of both were good things to level me out.
Um, when you go back to loyalty, that's a tough one because you're right. We all want to be loyal as friends.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we fall short of the mark, or like you said earlier, sometimes we go out and defend a friend because and I think, I don't know what with women, but as guys, like neighborhood guys, it's like, you never rat.
Boys.
You be loyal.
Yeah.
And like, it's,
Yeah, you're just like, hey, who am I supposed to hate? Because I got your back,
Yeah.
buddy. Like,
and it's
and-
troublesome because we have friends in our business that make mistakes, and our instinct is to protect them. I mean, look at Sharon Osbourne just jumped to the aid of Pierce without thinking, and look what happened.
Yeah.
But I get both sides. I get both sides of the situation.
Well, I think when we're younger, like anything else, our maturity helps us manage those characteristics better, like, because when we're younger and we're on the playground and early 20s, you're just like, hey man, I got your back no matter what. No questions asked. But as an adult, I think you can still be a very loyal friend by sometimes having those tough conversations, right? Like, hey man, like I got your back, and let's, what if you've been wronged, I will have your back, but let's look at what's going on in this situation, and sometimes you have to loyalty might mean calling your friend out, in a one-on-one situation where you're not embarrassing them in public, but you're having an honest conversation and say, as a loyal friend to you, I'm telling you, you're wrong, and you might disagree with me, and you might have a discussion. But I think there's different ways of being loyal, and sometimes loyalty is being honest with a friend. And again, you're doing it for the greater good. You're not doing it to be mean. You're not doing it to be right. You're just doing it to show that you love them, right? Because loyalty is just like letting a person know that you want to express love and show them love, and that you're going to be there for them. And being there for friends sometimes means that you have to sit them down and be like, I see it differently, man.
Like tough love.
And that tough love. And I think that's just harder to do. It takes a lot. It's a scary thing to do, to call out a friend, knowing that by doing so, you might get in a fight, you might get in a disagreement, they might be mad at you. And I think when we're younger, we don't want to do that. So I think we can show maturity in different ways, but
and how do you deal with in being a bachelor too? Because now you're in that vortex of, I mean, how many hundreds of bachelors, bachelorettes, and contestants, right, from that universe. Yeah. And then without the other reality stars who seem to cross over, do you typically just kind of play Switzerland when they all, because you have such a sweet demeanor. I don't see you getting into the cat fights that I see a lot of them get into, or some of them get into.
It's tough though too, right? Because, I have the podcast, and part of one of our shows, we cover the show. I try to spend a vast majority of my time, covering the show. I don't like getting into conspiracy theories or life outside of the show, right? Because there seems to be other people who follow, former Bachelor people or comment on their daily lives. But there have been situations that come up that I've either critiqued or had a comment on, but I always try to do it with a level of grace. Now, granted, we have fans, and our fans can be very protective of us, so they don't want to hear criticism. But there is a balance of trying to understand the position they're in, and maybe sometimes because the tough part is like these are my peers, right? And sometimes whether I'm friends with them or not, whether I've ever even met them in person, a lot of people will be like, well, you were on that Bachelor show and you so or so, and if they do something like that, then people want to associate you together. So it's kind of like, I don't want to be associated with some people who are making decisions I would never make. And there's a balance of trying to separate yourself from that type of stuff and or not. But ultimately, I try to show grace, but I've been criticized of being critical at the same time.
Oh, being critical. So when the thing with so the recent thing with Chris, and that debacle, is that something you stay clear of, or how do you handle that? Because I'm sure you like him.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough situation.
He's a likable guy.
Yeah, for myself, I mean, I consider Chris and Rachel both good friends.
Right.
I have a more personal, stronger connection with Rachel. She was on my season when I was a Bachelor. We've just hung out more as friends. But so on that level, it was like sad. It was sad to see. I commented like a lot of my peers when Chris made those comments because, they weren't okay. They were wrong. And there's obviously a lot of discussions around this topic. The thing is, we all make mistakes, and Chris made a mistake, but not all of us are also the host of The Bachelor. Chris has a huge platform and a huge microphone. And I think was it Spider-Man's uncle said, with great power and privilege comes great responsibility. So, I understand the discussion of Chris having to take a step back. So, I really try to not be reactionary as much as I can be a drama queen sometimes, but I understand what's going on, and
I think it's a fair assessment what you're saying. He's a bit older than you, right? Is he about 10 years older than you?
About 10 or yeah.
I wonder. I'm older. I'm like him, and I wonder if it's a generational thing where we're not educated really enough on this subject, because I've been thinking about it a lot myself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still learning too, right? I grew up in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and it's just one of those things. We all are guilty of ignorance, right? Yeah. And sometimes that ignorance comes from how we were raised, our communities. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I think you moved to LA and my circle of influence has changed. My circle has diversified, right? I have more Black friends now than I did when I lived in Wisconsin. And
it's a wonderful thing about LA.
I've learned things.
I think Hollywood is a really great, listen, we have our blind spots, but I think we connect a lot of people, and it's really cool.
And so sometimes even with my parents, I've had some tough conversations, and it's not because there's any hate in their heart. I mean, man, my parents are one of the most loving and open-minded people, but again, sometimes you're a product of your community, and sometimes even I'm thankful for my parents to be willing to learn from their kids, right? Because sometimes I've had these conversations and we'll talk about what's going on in the world and culture, and it's kind of like, hey, remember that one time where you told me that? Yeah, we can all agree that's kind of messed up, right? And I'm like, but and you feel a little shame, and you feel defensive, and you feel a little embarrassed. And I think sometimes those are the important times to lean into the discomfort. We hear a lot about that because it's easy to get defensive, right? Because we know that we can be guilty of these things too. And so 100%. I look at Chris's mistake, and it was definitely a mistake. And the biggest problem with what Chris said is, I don't know what his intentions were, but it sounded like he was suggesting that some of these things all of a sudden were offensive. And that's not the case, right? They've always been offensive.
Yeah.
You know, the Confederate flag is always offensive. Dressing up in blackface has always been offensive. Old South parties, always offensive. They didn't magically become offensive, but I think we are recognizing it faster than ever before. And I think it's important. But like I said, like, I still think Chris is a good person. I still trust Chris as a man, and I would still go to him for advice. But at the same time, I mean, it's not my decision to make, but he is in a particular special role as opposed to the Bachelor, and there's a lot of responsibility and privilege, and I can understand why people are conflicted about what should be done going forward.
Speaking of loyalty, have you reached out to him? Have you texted him or just?
Yeah, early on, just wanted to say, hey, I'm here for you, and I have, you know, again, I've spoken more with Rachel, but there's been some communication, but I haven't spoken with him in a few weeks, so I don't really know what's been going on, you know, other than just saying, hey, I hope you're okay, and I understand it's tough, and just let him know that it was hard to hear, but, you know, it's hard for me to throw stones knowing that I'm sure I've been ignorant in ways.
I think it's what you said earlier. That's the tough love part of love and loyalty is saying, hey, I'm here, but, you know, what you said was making. I'm really proud of Rachel and what she's done. We at AfterBuzz, she broke really big press with us, and it kind of trickled it began the petition for the 100,000 signatures to get more diversity on the show. I'm really happy to see her on Extra now, and you know, I always root for any of you guys to kind of get out of the universes you're in. It's like, it's okay to be there, but I really like talent to be independent. And I'm really proud of her.
I can't say enough of great things about Rachel. She, again, is one of the, you know, people that ask me about like Bachelor Nation. It's like any type of organization, right? There's some people you work with that you're friends with, some people you're just acquaintances with, and some people you're not necessarily a huge fan of. But Rachel is someone I would consider a friend that I would be friends with outside of the association with this show. And she's incredibly talented and has a lot of grace. And she's had to deal with a lot of very unfair criticism and nastiness, that there's just a ton of ignorance that goes on in this world. And I think there's one thing people will ask, like you say, like, as a white guy, it's just like, hey, I want to listen and I want to learn. And then people are quick to say, well, what have you learned? Right. And so, one thing I've learned is that, unfortunately, I think there is a lot more ignorance and racism that still goes on in our country than I think we wanted to realize. And I think part of it is because we are, again, recognizing these things, right? I mean, think about it. The Confederate flag was still in the Mississippi state flag up until 2020. That means in every elementary, middle school, high school, government building, the Confederate flag was flying in that state, right? And that's not okay. And it was always offensive. But like, think of all the people that just like looked at that and apparently considered that to be socially acceptable. Like when I was in elementary school and I looked at our state flag, and if I saw the Confederate flag, I mean, that's, and so as a society,
Dukes of Hazzard, it was always on the top of the General Lee, and it was whatever,
And again, there's these debates on, like, again, I'm for, like, to me, it seems insane that stuff was still going on. And it's good that it's not there. It's a tricky world. And I think, what I just try to say is, like, I want to be on the right side of history. I want to be a part of positive change. And sometimes that means leaning into my discomfort. And we're not always going to get it right. But we just have to try our best to be on the right side of things. And hopefully we can do that.
I've been thinking myself too, before my network went on hiatus, we were going to do a full education program. And I was thinking of it today, and I don't know, it wasn't even over this interview, but I'm actually just going to hire the person to teach me, the things where we've had the blind spots, because often we don't know. Yeah. We're not aware, and I want to become aware. And I think it's good for all of us to become aware,
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, right? Because again, I think it's very easy to get defensive in these situations, right? We see sometimes even our friends, right, get themselves in sticky situations. And I think a lot of people get defensive because maybe they know they did or said something offensive in the past. It just wasn't recorded. I don't know, but I think we all can get defensive, and I think sometimes we just it's a combination of doing our own research, and then be grateful for our friends who are willing to share their stories and teach us, right?
Yep.
Like especially like Rachel's a friend, right? So like there are times I'll ask her, it's like, hey, help me out here. I'm having a hard time understanding this from your point of view, right? And I'm always grateful of her willingness to take the time, because if for every one of me asking a question she's just like, you're an idiot, because I'm sure I can only imagine. I don't know what it's like to be in Rachel's shoes, but I do know, just hearing like she, her being the first Black lead in the franchise, she's had to endure so much bullshit, excuse my language, from fans and unfair criticism. Even this situation, she had to turn off her social media for because people wanted to very much unfairly decided it was somehow Rachel's fault for the words that Chris chose to say. And it's unfortunate, and even that I hope we can get to a place where we're not trying to take sides, but rather just again, just trying to be better, better together, as you say.
Absolutely. How do you think the show will be next season? I know because you cover it on your podcast, which, by the way, I love. Your podcast is universal. It's just to let everyone know he does cover Bachelor, but as you can see, he's very worldly and mindful and has so much other great takeaway. Top 100 in the world. That's right. Just saying, his podcast number 58. We did the research for him. He didn't even know that.
It was great.
Yeah. So, but Nick, what's the difference you think going to be with the two women hosting this season over Chris?
Well, it'll be interesting because I think people got to pay attention to the details. When ABC dropped that post at like 11 p.m. on a Friday night, and that was the news dumps of all news dumps. Truly. Right? And I think I don't, from what I hear, the situation is still fluid in terms of what are like long term, right, going forward. I think it was interesting in their statement how they said that Chris would not be hosting this upcoming season of The Bachelorette, and then followed up by saying that Tayshia and Caitlyn would be stepping in a supportive role of the next Bachelorette, but they didn't say hosting. Now everyone's saying, hey, they're hosting, and that's what they're calling it, but they didn't say that. And I think we should pay attention to that, because to me that says, they don't know what's happening with Chris going forward, and they're the news dump of it all. Like, I think it's still unclear, but
I wonder if what it says to me, Nick, and I could be wrong.
I know that those words were chosen very carefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh my goodness, as many minds went into that, and I don't think the news dump works anymore. It used to work.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't work. And nice try, guys. But I was gonna say, what if it's leaving the door open for a big name professional host?
I think
vis-a-vis a Nick Cannon, or someone like that whose job is who's an experienced seasoned host.
Yeah, I wonder. That's a whole nother debate. Like, could someone like an outsider, like who's hosted other big shows?
I keep picking Nick Cannon because I've been saying he's under so many contracts. I think he would do a pretty cool job. Not that I'm.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I have a horse in the race, but
you wonder, like, could he do a better job than, say, Caitlyn or another alumni? Who knows? Because like that's a very specific world in there, and it would be interesting. I feel like if I had to guess, like, the way the show airs in films, it was like people started recognizing that if Chris were to continue to host this upcoming season of The Bachelorette, that there really wouldn't be much time for this break that Chris said he was taking. And so the optics, how much time could Chris have to, just take some time, learn, reflect, and be better for it. He would, they're filming in a week, right? So you go from one season to another, like how much time have you taken off, right? And so but I think the hope is still there that, again, Chris can learn from his mistakes and will. And again, like the person, I know Chris, so, and I may be biased, but I believe if he wants to, he can. And if that's possible, can more good come from, him being someone and saying, hey, I was wrong. I was ashamed of my mistakes.
Yeah.
But his mistake could help other people who still have some ignorance. I hope so. I mean, again, I understand if people, don't believe that or see that, and that's why I'm glad I'm not a part of that decision-making process. But it sounds like it's still unclear. But as far as next season, again, like, when they say they're in a supportive World War Bachelorette, so I suspect, a lot of those, like, how in those checking in things that Chris would do, you're going to have Tayshia and Caitlin do that. I suspect you'll see other alumni pop in and be also a part of the upcoming season or seasons as they go forward. And I think you might see the franchise start leaning into some of their alumni who have some hosting experience or just understand that environment and just might be a nice kind of callback to some earlier days. So that's how I expect it to go.
I love that. I love them giving the alumni jobs. I love it.
Yeah.
Because it's like they do. The alumni and the bachelors, the bachelorettes do so much for the franchise and to make it what it is. So I always love that. I always root for talent. Getting back to the dating thing. So we're talking about the world. Hopefully, knock on wood, is going to reopen, and how do you think it affects I call it the swipe dating, but do you think that's affected in any way, shape, or form the apps dating world?
Yeah, because we have too many choices. It's paralysis of choice.
So true.
Yeah, I mean, there's been studies, and I feel bad like not having names or quoting it, but there are studies that show that we are unhappy. There's a level of unhappiness that comes from too many choices. And if you don't need any more proof than when you are trying to find something on Netflix to watch. Before Netflix, before we had 100 cable television shows, you'd have your basic cable, you'd go on TV, and it'd be a Saturday afternoon, and The Fugitive or Shawshank Redemption is on TV, and you'd be like, great, I'll watch this. And you were totally happy and satisfied, like checking in with Shawshank Redemption. And now you go on Netflix and you'll spend 45 minutes being like, oh, there's nothing to watch. And and Shawshank Redemption's available, but it's not good enough then.
And then you'll give up.
Because you'll give up and you have too many choices, and then you are frustrated and you feel bored and you feel like you have nothing better to do. But 10 years ago, when you were limited in your options, you were totally happy going back to watching Andy Dufresne, swim through raw sewage to find his freedom.
Or Goodfellas. That's the other Saturday
Goodfellas,
afternoon.
yeah. I mean, whatever it is, and
right
for
in.
other people, it might be like Stupid Crazy Love or 13 again. But we definitely had our go-tos or rewatchables.
But how do we navigate this now? Yeah,
well,
I don't have to worry about it, but
it's a lot of self-policing. It's a lot of it's not even I'd be stealing it, but Logan Ury is someone who wrote a book called Not Die Alone, who's a guest on an upcoming podcast of mine, and she talks a lot about dating with intentions, and it's something I've spoken to in different ways without kind of giving it that name. But yeah, I think one thing people really make the mistake these days is that the pursuit of finding your person hasn't really changed. Finding the one, as they say. And even though we'll say, like, I want to find my person or I want to find the one, we're out there dating like we're trying to marry 13 different people. Like we're trying to impress all these different people and we want to get everyone to like us. And I'm just like, why are you spending so much energy trying to get so many people like you when you're trying to find one? I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But we do that, right? And then we'll get broken up with, and then we forget how much they annoyed us. But like, well, we can't have someone break up with us. We can't have someone not like us. So we'll spend all this energy getting validation from someone that we used to complain about all the time, as opposed to moving on and finding someone more appropriate for us. But that's when our ego comes into play, and again, we lose our focus. We lose our intention. Our intention is finding one, right? And it's not to be liked. It's not to be popular. It's not to find many. And I think if we get back to that, or what our goals are of dating, we'll be a little bit more successful.
And I think that goes back to the awareness that you mentioned. Like, do you just want one? Because if you're with 13, do you really just want one? Like, I see a lot of that too. I just want to meet the one. And like, wait, you're juggling how many? Is that what you, and by the way, do that. No judgment for me, but be honest with yourself.
Be honest with your intentions.
Right? Yeah, with your intentions.
Setting upfront expectations with the people you're going on dates with, right? Yeah. Hey, it's fine if you want to be, listen, I'm going to be totally upfront with you. I'm looking for things that are casual, right? But then the self-policing comes in. All right, well, then you need to make sure that you stick to your word. Don't do, if you're like, hey, I'm not looking for anything serious, don't on date 3 say, I want to introduce you to my parents, right? Mm-hmm. People do it all the time. They're like, I don't want anything. I don't want anything serious. I want to keep it casual. And then all of a sudden, it's like, hey, let's take a trip. I want you to meet my parents. I got this event coming up. Can you come to this wedding with me? And so, like, the other person, they heard you say they don't want anything serious, but they're just like Dave over here, like, invited me, like, he's got an upcoming wedding. He wants me to meet his parents. He wants to take a trip with me. I'm just very confused about what you want, And I think we do that a lot. So I think we have to hold ourselves accountable. And sometimes they say we can't have our cake and eat it too, because a lot of us will make the mistake of wanting our freedom to get to know ourselves and other people, but we have a hard time being alone. We don't want to go to the flea market by ourselves. We want to go to Target with a girlfriend,
right?
So sometimes we just have to be okay with some of those moments of aloneness.
I think it goes back to being awareness, is having that awareness of what you want, and like you said, then setting that intention and being honest with yourself. Because I think, I hear the contradiction loud and clear. Like, I want to be alone and have my freedom, but then I'm going on 13 different dates.
And it's tough, right? Because sometimes the answer to these questions are force us to look in the mirror, right? Our ego never wants to think that they don't like us or that we're not the one for them. So, and then the flip side of it, right? The flip side is, the person's dating the person who says, well, I don't want anything serious, right? And you're like, they heard that, but then that person asks them to the wedding, asks them to meet their parents, asks them to go on trips. And so there's a disconnect there, and they feel it in their gut. Their gut saying, hey, he or she told you, man, up front, they didn't want to date this, but they're doing these other things. So what do? They add value to their actions, right? Well, it's like, actions speak louder than words, and his actions are introducing me to my parents. And so they'll have these kind of conversations with their significant other without actually having that conversation. They'll be afraid of asking the question of like, hey, well, how do you really feel about me? Or, because they're deep down, they're afraid they're going to be like, no, I still don't want to date you. I'm just selfish. I'm just like, I just don't want to be alone. I don't want to go to this wedding by myself. I want to go on a trip with somebody. You seem fun. And then we just avoid those questions. And then 2 years later, you're like, well, what are we?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I feel like,
it scares.
Nick, I feel like that's only going to get worse with this year. We haven't been able to talk to people, right? So that's only going to get worse with all of this stuff now being majority is online. It used to be like, I feel like kind of 50-50, right? But now it's a solid like 90-10, and it's like, shit.
Yeah, human communication's going, it's kind of like handwriting, cursive.
Yeah.
It's a lost art form,
Yeah.
Like you said, Kevin, you're a few years older than me. I'm sure even, I think as the world gets older, we're getting worse and worse at talking to each other or saying hi. The art of conversation nowadays, people are only text messaging.
Yeah.
And they're not ghosting. Ghosting is on the rise because we're just like, well, I don't know what to say, so I won't say anything at all.
And again, too many choices. You have too many messages. You have too many this, right? So it's easy.
Well, there's that too, and we've got bad at holding ourselves accountable because our peers are doing it. The problem with ghosting is it's one of those things where we end up just shaming ourselves because we know it's wrong, right? And then we end up becoming less happy because our subconscious will tell us. Another thing I got from Logan and her book is that the downside of doing things like ghosting, even though people are doing it, is that um, we know it's wrong, and we end up becoming less happier for it because we know we're hurting people, even though we'll have excuses like, well, I didn't know what to say, and I didn't want to hurt their feelings, so I didn't. Like, we know, and like we'll end up feeling less happy and less happy because I think at our core we are, most of us are good people, and we'll feel down on ourselves, we'll judge ourselves, and maybe sometimes rightfully so, because we're holding ourselves less accountable.
It's it's so interesting about accountability, awareness, and taking that stock. And I think we have so many like thought leaders and healers on this show, and everyone I'm noticing, they all say things in a different way, but the subtext of what they're saying is the same. And we keep hearing this over and over again. It's being aware, taking inventory of your life, pausing and having those moments. So for guys, I really urge men to do that. I certainly did not. I was guilty of all of this stuff, just a typical male going through life, and then I needed someone like Maria to knock me and put me in my place, thank God. But and I needed to grow up. But what advice? Well, for the guys, like, come on, be more aware. And I think it's nice that this author said this, that there's an incentive for them because they will end up unhappy, like, no matter what. I know you think you can sweep it under the rug and go on to the next, but ultimately ghosting will make you unhappy. I think that's really powerful to say, because I think that will help detract people from doing it. What do you have advice for women coming out of this? Like that, I know a lot of my friends who are single are just dying to go out and meet somebody.
Well, I mean, there's something I've noticed. Well, one thing I want to say, when it comes to a lot of dating stuff, I think a lot of the things I talked about are not gender specific. I mean, men and women are both guilty about doing this stuff. I have noticed more. I don't know if it's because of our society, but in dating, there's always a power dynamic, especially early on, and that can shift very quickly, because there's a lot of uncertainty, when you're, especially on dating apps. First, you see someone, you don't even know if you're going to match with them, and then you swipe right, and immediately this stranger has power over you because you've decided you like them and they don't like you back yet. I don't know. And then you match, and you're like, all right, well, now we've matched. Who's going to make the first move, type of thing. But I've noticed that, I think, for whatever reason, and I don't know the reasons why, but I've noticed that women spend a lot of energy, and maybe it's because of the old fashioned, I want a guy to pursue me, but within like wanting a guy to pursue them, they spend more energy on making sure the guy likes them and them being liked, and not enough time on, is this a guy you even want to like you? Is he worth your time? Does he have the qualities that you want in a partner? Does he respect you? And a lot of times I find that women will invest all this energy into some guy that, when they really think about it and really look at who they are, they don't have the qualities they say they would like in someone, or they would even like for their friend. But they spend all this energy because from the beginning of their interaction with this guy, he's held the power for whatever reason. Maybe he's good at just not giving enough, and making them feel like maybe they're just kind of charismatic or whatever it is. But they kind of get obsessed with getting validation and being liked by these guys that aren't even deserving of their time. And I noticed that more with my women audience than my male audience. But again, I think it can happen on both sides. But
I love that. Take the awareness and take the inventory, if you are that person, and say, wait, do I really like this guy? And is he my match and my soulmate? Or am I just rattled? Is my ego? He's just challenging me in every way, shape, and form, playing hard to get? I think that's really interesting.
I think a first date, the first couple dates, especially the first date, is really, again, it should be treated like an interview. You should really leave, just, you put your conclusions to the side for now. You're just collecting, as you say, you're just collecting information. You're trying to get to know someone. but we're always checking in on do I like them? Do I like them? Do they like me? I hope they like me. And it's just like, I don't know. This guy's a total stranger. Could be a stranger for 6 months. But first dates, I think we just collect data on the first date, and then knowing that things like nervousness and not knowing what to say, and there's a lot of reasons why first dates can go bad. Maybe give them a chance to keep getting you more information. The more information you have, the better you can make decisions. And seeing is that most people are trying to find the one for the rest of their lives. They should maybe be a little bit more patient in their decision making process, and they should want to get more information. But so many of us are, again, because we have so many choices, it's just like I don't know, I don't like his collar,
and
swipe left.
And yeah, and I think that's interesting too, is the fact that I see with both men and female, it's like, I don't like the way he holds his fork or she holds her fork out, done.
Yeah.
You see a lot of that. And then what is your advice about maybe hanging in a little? Because when I think about sometimes first impressions I've had with people, that some of the people that I've had terrible first impressions of became my most valued friends, in life.
These people are, first dates are made for the extroverted, the charming people. If you're a slightly introverted person or totally, I myself, I've learned as I've gotten older, it turns out I lean more introverted with some extroverted characteristics. Because I would be like, oh, I like going to parties, I like concerts, I like going out. I'm I can be very charismatic when I want to, but my resting space is kind of, even when I'm out at a party, to like hang out in small groups and or talk to one person. And sometimes with that, I don't want to be the life of the party. And I think, and so if you have any type of introverted characteristics, there's a good chance that you might not be a rock star on the first date. And to that point, you might be on a date with someone who might not be the most charismatic, life of the party person, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't be a great life partner. Sometimes if you are an extroverted person, having a little introverted in a partner is a nice to have. But to your point, you kind of have to let it breathe and take some time. Sometimes, there are people who are just naturally charismatic, and that they're not necessarily your.
Yeah. I know a lot of successful people who are charismatic, millionaires who are just very gregarious and, and it's part of I think it's part of their charm that's helped them get successful. But as far as like a partner goes, like a life partner, I would,
right. And then because that really has nothing to do with them connecting with one person, so I think
are there any things,
defining expectations with yourself on a date, again, it comes back to being patient, remind yourself that you're looking for one, remind yourself that the rest of your life is a really long time. People like, what, it's like, people are like, I'm 25 and I'm still single. Like, what the F? And I'm just like, well, listen, I don't know how long you're gonna live, but let's just assume you'll get to like 85. Who knows what can happen? But like the average life expectancy is 80s, somewhere there. So if you're 25 now, that's a long time. So like, make sure maybe you're fine being single at 25. Maybe you have some getting to know yourself, and maybe you need to take a few years to get to know someone before you know they're your person. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay.
Yeah.
Because like, it would really suck spending the next 40 years with this person.
Get to know a lot of people in that time. Just be honest with them. Don't lead anyone on to think, I think. It's okay to hurt people's feelings when dating. That's a big one. That's a big one. Yeah.
Don't be mean, don't be selfish, but that, like, dating's hard. It sucks. Dating is a means to an end. It's not necessarily something you do for entertainment. Like working out, I guess you can enjoy working out, but like, working out is a means to an end to living a healthy lifestyle. And sometimes working out can be painful. It can be grueling, and it can get exhausting. Sometimes we need a break from working out. Dating is no different. yeah, I just think sometimes we have to see it that way. And people want it to be like, oh, dating sucks. It's like, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you should stop, you know?
No.
And
And it
sometimes
could,
working out can be fun. Sometimes dating can be fun, but the overall experience of dating is arduous and challenging because
well,
it can be really discouraging if it doesn't work out. It's a huge risk.
listening to some of the people who've been on our show and who talk about being and being present, what if we divorce ourselves from the expectations and the results? So then maybe dating's not, then dating could be fun because I'm going to dinner, I'm meeting this new person, finding out about their world, but I'm not going into it with the expectation of if this isn't my future wife or my future husband, I'm a failure.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like an ego thing, right? If we didn't have egos, dating would be easier. But we do.
Yes,
and
unfortunately.
So much of it not working out is, well, she broke my heart. I can't get over it, And like I said, this guy on my questions today, a guy asked me this question today, and I think my answer to him is something along the lines of like, well, you can't get over it because you're seeing her rejection as a reflection of who you are, right? And somewhere along the line, your ego has decided that she's the only person who can validate you because she rejected you. And in reality, it has nothing to do with your validation, is that the relationship didn't work out. The relationship is, and she recognized it before you did, right? She didn't reject you. She rejected the relationship, and you would eventually have seen it, right? But she just beat you to it, and it feels like rejection. So you need to accept that, and you need to move on because, and so we get hung up on these things. When we get rejected, we give all this power to the person who rejected us and think, well, I need to like find a way for he or she to take me back because I feel inadequate. I feel less than, and because that person hurt me. And if that person's the one who hurt me, they're the only person who can help me. And that's not usually how it works, but we have a hard time accepting that. I have only learned this because of my own bullshit that I've done.
Yeah.
And
it's brilliant though.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. And it makes so much sense. Are there things that women and men can look out for to see that the person across them isn't the right match or isn't certainly someone they should be spending their time with, or the things that we can look for?
Yeah, I feel like I just interviewed Logan, so I'm probably, I might want to make sure she is getting credit. So buy her book, Things to Do to Not Die Alone, I think is the title. But and she, in a lot in her book, she talks about things I've talked about before, but she talks a lot about knowing the difference between your non-negotiables and your pet peeves. Right?
Oh.
So like your non-negotiable, like, listen, if you want to have kids and they don't, that's going to be really hard to, someone's going to have to drastically change a huge part. If someone is a heavy smoker and you're not, or someone wants to live in Europe and you want to live in the United States, those are hard. Pet peeves would be more like, I'm not good at doing dishes, or I hate folding. Like I'm kind of, slightly sloppy, or we have different tastes in movies, or something. Yeah. Those are like more pet peeves that we can get over. If you don't like the way your boyfriend grooms his hair, like help him out. Make sure, if he smells bad, buy him cologne. Make sure he showers. So I think we just have a way. We have to sometimes power through these pet peeves, and I think we give pet peeves too much validation. Back to like we have too many options. Like, well, I don't know. I don't like the way he wears his white t-shirt. He doesn't know how to dress. I'll find a guy who knows how to dress. Well, that guy who doesn't know how to dress might be funny, charming, like great, and you just like have to take him to like Macy's. I don't know.
Yeah. And more than likely by the time he's in his 50s and 60s, he's going to dress horribly anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's going to get behind the times at some point.
I love this too, because like I feel like pet peeves have come out now more than ever in this last year, right? So everyone's getting pissed off. Everyone's pet peeves are flying, right? And it's like, so this is such an important point.
And what do you think about, Nick, taking the time, again, going back to awareness, taking the time to maybe list your non-negotiables before you even meet anybody, just in life. Like these are things, like you said, I want to be a dad by this age. I want to be a dad, period. Or I want to I want to make a lot of money and I'm going to be at work a lot and maybe I need a partner who's domesticated.
Exactly. Well, I think again, you just want to be careful with that. Like, I think wanting to be a dad, great. Wanting to be a dad by a certain age, not so great, because life throws us curveballs, right? You know, being upfront with like, hey, I'm money driven, and my career matters to me, but in every relationship, there's limits to that. That can't be something you tell a partner and expect them to always put up with it, right? Like, I'm a bit of a workaholic. My girlfriend sometimes is like, hey, can we, like at 6 o'clock, put our shit away and focus on each other? And I think that's a reasonable request, right? Stuff like that. So, but yeah, I think I think it's important to have non-negotiables, but I think it's important to make sure that that list is small. If you have a bunch of non-negotiables, maybe they're not really non-negotiables.
Yeah. Or if you do, then again, it's the awareness, because I have some single friends, guys and girls, and I don't know why I'm single, but it's the non-negotiables. Now that you verbalized it, it is way too long. And I think, again, it's that awareness of, okay, I have way too many non-negotiables, so I probably should just be alone.
Yeah, they're confusing their pet peeves with their non-negotiables.
Yeah, or maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe these are non-negotiables, but then be honest about it, and don't be, you have to understand that's probably why you're not with somebody, because you have too many.
Yeah, exactly. Or they're valid non-negotiables, but they don't tell anyone. They pretend they're not, and they get into these relationships like knowing full well this person is a good match for them, but they just like ignore it until it's a problem.
Do you think see where your partner is a yang to your yin, and I am as well with my wife? Is that something we should look for or be aware of in certain ways? Like, I love that she's like, no, enough, you're unplugging, I with you, and I have that with Maria in so many different ways, and that's why we work well together. But is that something we should be aware of? Maybe we don't want a person who's exactly like us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm an expert in compatibility, but I think there's a bunch of different things that could mean you're compatible with someone. I think you just have to, speaking for myself only, I'm someone who, for most of my life, I'm a big personality, and I've always really been attracted to strong-minded women, right? And I still am. And my girlfriend is a strong-minded woman, but how she shows that is different than my ex's, right? In past relationships, all great girlfriends, just not compatible for me. But that strong-mindedness turned into more confrontation, right? It turned into us maybe critiquing each other more than we should, and there wasn't enough of balancing out. Maybe we were too similar, but my current relationship, I feel like we communicate better because she is a more quiet-minded person. And not and no way a pushover, and not, and certainly, but she, again, I think it goes, I think I needed someone who was less dramatic than me. I didn't realize it at the time, but now that I found it, I think I needed someone who was less dramatic and more grounded than I am. And I never would have, and that's the self-awareness that it took me many years to realize, because I never thought of myself as dramatic. And I still think I'm very grounded and level-headed in a lot of ways, but not in this way. And it's something that's been really beneficial for my personal life. So, and again, that's, it took me many, many years to figure that out.
To figure it out. And you did. How's it been, how's it been, becoming a celebrity, with Bachelor? We were talking off air, and I'm always fascinated by, regular guys like us, and then all of a sudden it's like, what? And we come into this world, and that transition from, being one of 11 kids, you had to be humbled. Even if you didn't tell me you had to be. And I know my friends who came out of those 8, 9, 10, 12 kid homes. It was even like fighting for food was always, it was a lot. So, but
legit, I still eat like my dinner is running away from me.
Yeah, right. Because everyone is just diving in. I remember from my friends. So for you, what's it been like? Even with celebrities now, becoming fans of yours, recognize? Well, let me even ask, like, who are some of the biggest celebrities that have come up to you and said, like, I know Lady Gaga's a huge Housewives and 90 Day Fiance fan, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
Who are some of the Bachelor fans who are celebrities that have reached out to you?
Well, I mean, it's varied. Like well, I mean, I briefly dated January Jones, and people know about that, and that was for me. Like, we're still friends, and we're still cool. But legit, our first date was like, I'm like, but that first time I knew who January was, I was a kid living in Milwaukee watching Mad Men, being like, this is like the hottest person I've ever seen.
Yes.
And then fast forward 10 years later, I'm on a date.
How did that date come about?
Well, it came about from her being a fan of the show, and she went on TV and kind of anecdotally talked about being a fan of The Bachelor, and she brought my name up and kind of like suggested that, she was like, people thought either was she teasing me or flirting, and so I just DM'd her, and I was just like, I was just like, she kind of called me out for not asking her out or something. I don't know. So then I was like, well, this is me shooting my shot. And and she was a delightful, wonderful person. And I enjoyed my time with her. And, it was great to get to know her. And like I said, it's nice to still be able to call her a friend. So that was, as far as dating a Hollywood crush that you have, that was bucket list. That was it. And then through friends I have, like, I've talked how Rumor Willis is a good friend of mine. Interestingly enough, we were both on Dancing with the Stars, but we met through just mutual friends before that. And I remember meeting at her 30th birthday party at her mom's house. Like, I was huge fans of both Demi and Bruce, being movie stars that they were. And to me, it was like when I met her, I remember thinking, God, it's just like meeting any friend's moms that I have. She's so, nice and sweet, and like any mom would. And that was a unique experience. And then when I met her dad at our 30th birthday party, again, very nice, very gracious, but I just remember being so weird around him. And I was just like, this is Bruce Willis. Like, it was, and I like legit tried to avoid him because I was too afraid of saying something stupid or being weird. And so I was just like, you know what? He said hi to me. Is that where you left it? You never spoke to him more in depth than that? He said hi, he said bye, but I was legit too afraid to have a conversation with him. But the other part, that party was actually because Sia was there. And, Sia, like, she's been less, her anonymity is like not as people know what she looks like now, but for many years. And so I knew who Sia was, but I didn't know what she looked like at the time. And she was at the party, and turns out she's a Bachelor fan. She's like, "Hi, Nick. I'm a big fan. I'm Sia." And I just like it all like, what? And her and I talked for like 45 minutes. And she was so pleasant and so lovely and so nice. And
what do you talk about with Sia for 45 minutes? It was one of those things, like the easy part of being on that show is like, it's a fascinating show. The people have a lot of questions. It's very bizarre. There's a lot of rumors about how things happen. Some are true, some are not true. And so she had a lot of questions about the show, and I was happy to tell Sia whatever she wanted to know.
That's awesome.
That was a really great memory, because the whole time I'm thinking, like, she introduced herself to me. Yeah. Like, right. And I just, it was a very humbling and fun experience. And so, yeah, I live in LA, so you get used to it. And, Brie Larson, I have mutual friends with her. And when I was the Bachelor, she invited me over to have a viewing party. And,
no way. During your season?
Yeah. Well, and then I feel good about that because my best friend met his now wife at that party.
Oh, wow.
So that was the only real love story that came from.
I just love that Brie Larson had a Bachelor viewing party. She must be another diehard fan.
I don't know if she still is. She was. I think she was really into that particular season and got really into it. And so my buddy who had a friend whose friend's girlfriend would go to this viewing party. It was like a lot of people, and they're like, "Hey, do you and Nick want to go to Breeze?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And she was very nice and very so like I think those moments I just tried to like when you are in that position as a bachelor, it's a lot of fun and you get a lot of access and people are very fascinated with you. It's something I've tried to tell like people who've come after me to enjoy, because you will get a lot of access, but just don't mistake that for credibility, because it's not, and you have to earn the credibility, and that might take a few years.
Wow. Yeah.
Sometimes people will see us as like zoo animals.
In what way?
Well, because again, there's a fascination I think with people who go through that experience, who say yes to that experience, and we all judge ourselves. We like to judge other people. And I think if you go on that show, people are just fascinated. And so with that fascination comes the desire to ask questions. For example, I haven't hung out with Sia since, and it's totally fine. I get it. But like, I also get why she had a fascination, right? But like, it doesn't mean all of a sudden we're best friends, right? And I think I'm thankful that I've always understood the difference between access and credibility. And you can get credibility, but sometimes you have to do more than just go on a TV show and be interesting for a few minutes to get that,
Oh, you have such great perspectives. So I can't believe this show's been on this long. And when we think of the amount of people that have been on it and now are older, I know you would never say yourself anyway, but I want to ask you, who do you think's been the best Bachelor?
It's such a loaded question.
I know, right?
I think it's such a hard, I think it's one of the hardest experiences I've ever gone through. And I'm very protective of my peers who have experienced that. I think every bachelor and bachelor or bachelorette is unfairly critiqued. I'll just say Matt because he's the most current one. For so many reasons, Matt has had to deal with things that other people before him haven't. One, he's the first Black Bachelor, and with that are expectations. And then you have the mess that's gone on in this season that has, kind of almost capitalized the conversation of just him being the Bachelor. And then you take the production on it, like the producers decided to have him meet 35 women. That's insane. How is he supposed to get to know anyone? And then Matt, and again, that's not, there's a lot of variables that went into Matt being the Bachelor before he was on the Bachelorette. One of them obviously is the pandemic. And then two, there's a lot of questions about, like the social, the Bachelor franchise put them in a position by not casting a Black Bachelor before that. And then obviously a lot of people were calling out the franchise for not having the diversity. And so did that, I think it's safe to say that played a role. But as far as Matt goes, he had no experience in it. It's a crazy world to go in, and everyone else before that at least went through a little bit of the nuttiness on the other side. So they learned the ropes a little bit. Matt went in without that experience. And I think given all those variables, I think he's done an excellent job. Mm-hmm. He's been vulnerable. He's been honest. He's been patient, both with production and with the women on his season. And he's had to deal with so much I don't even think people can fully appreciate it. And even I can't fully appreciate it, even though I've been in his position. And I think he's done an excellent job. And
for bachelorettes, who would you say?
Well, I mean, if you're talking great TV, like probably Hannah Brown in terms of straight up TV.
So true.
Yeah, that's what Kelsey says.
But there's so many variables too. I mean, Hannah Brown did have the benefit of having arguably the best villain of all time. That was just a beautifully cast.
Wait, so season. Who would be the best villain?
Well, Luke Parker, and
yeah,
he was. It's a secret sauce, right? Yeah. And what made that season so compelling is because I've never met the guy, so I've heard enough that I'm like, he just kind of sucks.
He was so bad.
I say that reluctantly because I don't like labeling people I haven't met in person. But I've asked enough of people, and I think he just, he has some toxic characteristics, and so he made for a good villain. But the wrinkle there is that Hannah really liked him.
Yeah.
And her liking the villain for so much of that season, only to finally realize what she was dealing with, was just awesome TV, And then you had other good characters like Tyler Cameron and Peter at the time, and then you had the outside drama of the guy she picked, Jed, having his bullshit with another. All those things just made it into like a really awesome season. And so Hannah, I think, was a great bachelorette just because she didn't run from the drama. She embraced it, and her vulnerability as a human and being drawn to someone like Luke Parker made it really great TV. Had she not liked Luke that much,
Truly,
it wouldn't be as good of a season.
Well, and now it's great because she's happy with her new boyfriend. So it just
There you
makes
go.
it full circle. Are you and Natalie going to go on double dates? Hey, now.
I don't see that happening.
When it opens, when the world opens, come on.
Hannah and I, we don't really hang out in the same social circles, but I saw her. We have a mutual friend in Demi, and I saw her, and we said hi. And it was a very lovely interaction. I think anything can change, but I don't know if we'll be double dating anytime soon.
All right.
And what are you thinking about for this season coming up? What do you think of the pick?
We don't know. Well, it hasn't been officially announced.
Okay.
Who the Bachelorette is.
Officially.
So
Officially.
I don't want to get myself in trouble.
No, I don't want you to get in trouble either, Nick.
Will we see you at all, Nick?
We got Tayshia. We have Caitlin. It'll be different, man.
It could be fun. It could be something different. Different isn't always bad.
Well, I agree, right? I think the truth is we don't really know, right?
Yeah.
Because Chris has been literally the face of this franchise for so long. He's been the one constant, and I guess we just don't know what that looks like without him.
Yeah.
And change is always a little uncomfortable. And sometimes we change for the better, and sometimes we try things out and it doesn't work out, and we realize what we had was a pretty good thing. And so I don't know. I do think Tayshia and Caitlin will do a good job. I mean, I'm much closer with Caitlin. She's a friend, and so I'm very biased in how well I think Caitlin will do, but I think they'll both do well, and I think there is some value in it being different. I think it's safe to say that whoever the Bachelorette is, that Caitlin and Tayshia might connect with the Bachelorette when it comes to those kind of like early times where they're like maybe emotionally struggling and they're having a hard time deciding what's next. And I'm more interested in seeing Caitlin talk to the next Bachelorette about that struggle than I am Chris and the next Bachelorette. So maybe that's a positive thing. I don't know. So things change for a variety of different reasons. This is the situation that we're in right now, and I'm rooting for Caitlin and Tayshia to do a great job, and that has nothing to do with my support for Chris as a human.
No.
Nick, do you know if they're going to be back at the mansion?
No, they're still kind of filming things quarantine style.
Crazy.
My guess is, and they don't tell me these things, but I think people confuse me having relationships with the show as like working for the show.
Yeah.
I have no
guys know
official
everything.
working relationship with them, but I would guess that they'll be doing this style of filming for the rest of the year. There's legal aspects that they're following, and the Bachelor franchise has. Well, you have Warner Brothers, who's owned by AT&T, produces it, and ABC, who's owned by Disney, distributes it. So those are four monster corporations that are involved in this love show. So my guess is they will be on the more safer side when it comes to filming things. And I would suspect there'll be no travel for the rest of this year.
Crazy.
Nick, thank you so much. This has been so informative. As you can see, I was taking notes vociferously because
good word.
I'm learning so much. You're really a great guy, and it's definitely no coincidence that you have a top 100 podcast in the world. And I really encourage more people to join in and listen, because I do feel like you have a really good 21st century voice that we need. And,
well, I very much appreciate you guys saying that. You guys have been around in this industry and being successful at it for a very long time. So I do remember my first Buzz After Buzz podcast and my first experience, and it was fun.
Did you go? It's funny. So at AfterBuzz, my network, we said this off here. You had interviewed with Kathy Kelly, right? Was it Kathy? Was it a chatting with Kathy?
It was Kathy and a few other people.
Okay.
I always thought Kathy hated me. I kind of had a crush on her. But I was pretty sure I was like the villain on our first season, and I'm like, she hates me so much, but like I think she's the greatest, and we're friends now.
Yeah.
And I have since been fortunate enough to have her as a guest on my podcast. But yeah, that was kind of my first experience with any type of podcasting or recapping or things like that. So
back in the day,
you guys are a reason, part of the reason I guess you could say I'm in this business.
Oh, it's so good to hear. And yeah, Kathy's gone on to become so successful since then. So wow, that's nice. I didn't even think of the connection. I should have.
Yeah.
You're a good man, Nick. So where it's at Nick Viall, and it's the Viall, the how do you say that, is it Viall Files?
It's Viall Files. Yeah. I mean, my last name sucks. I know I can pronounce it correctly. Which is like, I don't know why. It's just like, okay, here's my opportunity to get away from a name that no one can pronounce correctly. So what do? I put in the title of my show.
It's perfect.
But yeah, it's just Nick Viall on Instagram, Viall Files on Instagram, and then you can stream the podcast anywhere you can listen to a podcast. And we also drop our episodes on YouTube, like you guys do as well, if you're more of a visual person. And that's about it. I also do my like weekly Q&A on Instagram and give short, sweet, but to the point relationship advice that people seem to enjoy.
Yeah, you had some great ones today.
Nick, you may want to go over to Clubhouse too. Have you heard of that yet?
I've heard of Clubhouse. It's live.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of Clubhouse.
Oh, okay. But I just think for dating advice and not I wouldn't. You wouldn't have to engage.
I want to give it a shot. Yeah. But have you done it?
No, but I might, for just Hollywood advice. People.
When you advice. Go on it, I'll go on it with you.
Okay.
There we go, you guys.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
Old man, young man.
Yeah.
We'll set up Kev's bio.
Yeah, no, Nick, let's definitely stay in touch. And when the world comes back to life, let's get together in LA and
awesome.
Keep this conversation going.
I'd really like that.
Yeah, so would I. You're a good man. Thank you so much, Nick. What a great guy and a great perspective, and definitely good takeaway for anyone going back into the dating world.
Yeah, I had one more question, but we steered away from dating, but we need to get him back. When we get him back, I want to know, we talked a lot about like not making super judgments like on your first dates and that sort of thing. And I was like, okay, great. How do we not make super judgments on the app when it's all based on, pictures and this and that?
Oh.
And I wanted to get more into that. Like, and
could you apply the non-negotiables, which.
Yeah, but it's so hard. How do you do that?
I don't know. I've heard that there's guys and girls who literally just enjoy their DMs piling up with it.
Totally.
They just do it for that.
Boost.
Right? Just to get like 50 to 100 DMs saying, hey.
It's an ego boost for sure.
Ugh. Well, learning ghosting will only bring you pain. And I think that's really good as incentive to not do that. And I think just awareness is taking that time. I've had this conversation with, even with you, Kelsey. We've talked about being single, and I'm like, what do you really want? There's what we want, what we really want. We've talked about on Regular Guy Fridays, and for some people, it's like right now you really want, I think, career success in that. So that's what you're getting. And then I think there's other people or I'll say from a guy's perspective, they just want to be womanizers. Well, that's what you really want.
You don't really want, or you don't.
Yeah.
You want a relationship, but that's not what you really want.
But you really just want to have your ego built and go out with a ton of people.
Right.
And the flaw in that is not being honest with yourself, and then the bigger flaw is not being honest with the other parties.
Right.
And then all the crap that will come to you later.
Right.
So anyway, I thought that was fascinating talk. He's a really good man, and a bright guy, and no coincidence that his podcast is that successful.
I agree. I have to say, I really liked his talk on rejection. That you're seeing her rejection as who you are, like we're giving power to that person who rejected us. I think that's something so important to remember. It's so hard, but it's really important to remember.
It is important to remember because we hear rejection's protection, and it is, but that is it's
not who you are.
It's not who you are.
Yeah.
You know it is with you, and I always say lower consciousness and higher consciousness. So higher consciousness gets bored, and I'll go to my father-in-law, Costas. Higher consciousness, he's bored, and what's he doing? Okay, I'm gonna tear down this wall. What are you doing?
Right.
And you're the same way.
Yeah.
But we talk often, we see the trolls, and you just see, and I feel, even sometimes in their photos, I feel their pain, like just how dark.
Yeah.
And the lower consciousness board is like, I'm just gonna go and cause pain to I have pain for jealousy maybe, and then I'm going to take it out on everyone by spreading anger and hate, and if they only knew that even if that feels good in the minute to do cruel things online, I've never met one person like that's ever amounted to be a happy or self-fulfilled person. So all right, you guys, I think it's time to go. Right, Kelsey?
Yeah, it was fun though, you guys.
And what should we do, Kelsey?
Well, actually, I do have something to say. Our next Patreon Heal event has been scheduled, and I'm going to send out an RSVP very shortly. So check that out in your inbox. We're going to do a nice yoga session with Rosie Acosta, my girl. She's an incredible yogi, does stuff with Wanderlust all the time. And I feel like we're all in this space right now where we're kind of coming out of winter, getting into spring. We need to move our bodies. So for all you Patreon members, it's the $10 and up tier. You get that Heal event free. I'm so excited. A class with her is like phenomenal. So if you haven't signed up for Patreon, sign up so you can join that event. And if you have, keep an eye out for your emails. We got some other great people this week, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And guys, please, in this time, stick with us. Marie's getting, she's getting where she needs to be, and checking in every day. And like I said, the best way you can help us is to stay with us and continue to tell friends. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube, please do so. And if you have them, like I said, if you have friends who want great content that gives great life improvement tips every single day, please have them subscribe to our YouTube page, and as well as our At Better Together with Maria Instagram page, because we give a lot of really short form content that's incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
So anyway,
beautifully said, Kev.
Now, Kelsey,
I can tell you all to be nice people, make good choices, and be present.